Hello and welcome to the Right Discourse. I am your host Kisle Kumar. Today I have brought a very important topic for you, the increasing tensions between India and China, the India-China skirmishes. Where is it going to take us? What are the impacts and implications of the India-China skirmishes? How is it different from the standoffs that keep happening between India and China throughout the year? China has entered into the Indian territory somewhere near the Pangong Tso Lake and the Galwan River Valley with 5,000 strong troops. To talk about the implications of this rising tension between India and China, we have a very special guest in our show today. Welcome, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh. Dr. Singh is a Seoul-based geostrategist and he is associated with Asia Institute. He is the director of the East Asian Department in the Asia Institute and he has been working tirelessly to improve the India-Korea ties. He is also an expert on East Asia. Dr. Singh publishes many articles in different magazines related to India-Korea ties and the geostrategic situation of the East Asian region. Let us welcome Dr. Singh in our show today. Professor Singh, welcome to the Right Discourse. Thank you for accepting my offer to talk to me again. So let us begin with this very serious issue. The first question which I would like to ask you is, how is this skirmish different from the various standoffs that India and China face all throughout the year? And had Galwan River Valley seen something of such sort before?
Thank you, Kisle. Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. This China question is complicated, As you know, China from time to time keep coming into our territory and we don't know the real motive, why they come, but this time they have come in strength. Almost 15,000-20,000 soldiers are in our territory at different places. I don't know, nobody knows why they are here in such a large number and what is their attention. So, but the extent, the numbers and the extent they have come in is different. Now they are almost 6 to 7 kilometers inside our territory. And numbers are also quite huge. Usually they come in 100, 200, but now they are in thousands. So what are their real attentions? I don't know. This valley has not seen such an intrusion for a long time. This is actually a settled area where they say both China and India always believe that this territory, this area is already settled, So nobody took it seriously. But why Chinese are trying to disturb peace in a situation in an area where already boundary line is settled? That is why Indian, to some extent was not watching this area of territory. So I think Chinese motives may be much deeper than we can think of.
So, Dr. Singh, let us move to the second question of the show. As you said that you cannot really say that what is happening in the Galwan Valley region and what are the motives of the Chinese behind this. But this is seriously unprecedented and something of this sort has never happened before for a long time. So what could be the reasons? What could be the speculations? There are different speculations by different scholars and the experts on China. What does your speculation say? Is it related to infrastructure project going on in the Galwan Valley region, in the Ladakh region, or it is related to some sort of political and diplomatic concessions that China might might want to get from us?
Very good question. As I said in my opening remarks, the real logic or real reasons behind China's intrusion this time is not easy to understand. So it depends on the person you ask. Everybody try to see it from different angles, I have always seen China's intrusion into our territory as a part of bigger picture. As I said in my recent article, whenever China faces some problem in the world, it tries to show its anger by this kind of military activity in the region. So now China is under extreme pressure because of COVID reason, and it tries to kind of divert attention from its situation at home and in the international area. It is trying to make this kind of intrusions. As you know, this week, even yesterday, China passed a SCOTY law through which it almost took over the Hong Kong, So when the world is focused on India, China is slowly taking over Hong Kong. So it's kind of part of bigger picture. So because of this kind of Taiwan, South China Sea, Hong Kong, and India, world community's attention is diverted and is trying to do its job. This is how China operates, China never allow one issue to come up come up at one point, so that it can different people focus on different areas. Like we are India now, we are focusing on our own issue. Americans are focusing on Taiwan and Hong Kong. Other countries are focusing on different areas, COVID area. So in this way, China's strategy to avoid the pressure, intense pressure for its deeds and misdeeds, this is a very well calculated strategy.
Okay, so Dr. Singh, thank you for your insightful answer regarding this. A very related question to this could be that in 1962 also China did something to divert attention of its own citizens from the famine, the 4 years famine that happened in China, and then they escalated a war with India, and it was kind of limited war with India. So, is there a situation of escalation right now at present
No,
with China?
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Even though Indian scholars, Indian analysts are talking about it, but I think China have no desire to fight India at this stage. Fighting a war with India, especially at this stage, will be very, very costly for China, and Chinese economy and Chinese military cannot afford it. So, I strongly advise Indian scholars and Indian defense experts not to rush to pick up their guns. War with China is not coming yet. Chinese are not ready to take on India yet. So I think it's part of a Chinese strategy to study post-COVID-19 environment in the world, in the region. So as I said in my recent writings, I said war with China, if happens, will happen only in the Indian Ocean. Chinese have nothing to gain by getting some Himalaya mountains, It's few territory. Territory has ceased to be any economic importance for a long time. Now it's bigger picture. China has a huge economy. Whether it occupies one mountain or not doesn't matter. In bigger picture. So China, I don't think China will fight for a boundary line with India on such a small scale. So I don't think any war with China is possible now, because China have nothing to gain by taking on India.
Okay, so Professor Singh, that was a very interesting point, that Chinese are not going to have war for an arid region of Himalayas, but they are looking for a bigger picture in the maybe the Indian Ocean, or somewhere where they could have actually economic and strategic leverage. So right now, Himalayas going at war in the Himalayas won't be a good option for the Chinese, and neither a good option for the Indians too, because India is anyhow there is a huge asymmetry between the military power of India and China at present. So that is quite understandable. Well, my speculation at present also says that China may feel that this is the correct time to encroach on the Indian territory, because India is getting economically weaker by the day due to the COVID, and also investing in any kind of war or affording any kind of war by India at present would be very difficult. So Chinese might think that this is the correct time, and they may encroach on the Indian territory in the Himalayas.
This is not a good line of thinking. Chinese know what India is military today is, So this kind of COVID-19 economics implication are very temporary and short. But Indian army as a military force is a well known, COVID-19 cannot affect India's military strength in the short term.
Exactly. So
you think that Chinese political thinker, a Chinese military strategist, know what India is all about. And with very mature military leadership, they will never make this kind of mistake that COVID-19 has hurt India's military capabilities. So some mature political commentator or journalist who are looking for some kind of masala kind of story to write, fill pages, can take this logic, and try to say, oh, China thinks India is weak now, so we can India seize it. No, India is not weak, and this COVID-19 is just a temporary phenomenon. Indian military and Indian Navy stand strong, and Chinese know that. Taking on India, short notice will be not easy for China also. So we should, but I'm not saying we should ignore China's intrusion. No, but we should leave it to our local commanders. Let the local commander in the Himalayas tackle it. We should give them free hand, But we at the policy level, at the strategy level, should stay calm and cool. Should not do too much. And my friends, professor friends who are giving their war cries that it's time to take on China. It's not time to take on China. So China is very complicated, for us. So small intrusion here and there should not be taken as China's attention to attack India. So China's real motives are more complicated. Chinese political leadership and military leadership very mature. They will never cross a line for small reasons.
Yes, Professor Singh. So, what could be the reason behind the government's silence? There has been no word from the higher ups in the government, and the government is totally silent. Is it because they don't want Indians to see the actual picture and, in a way, pressurize government to act against China?
No. Actually, government is responding very well. Government is responding very well because this is how a mature government should respond. Actually, I'm not unhappy with the government's response. As I told you, China is not our problem. China is someone else's problem. And bigger power struggle is going on in the world. China is trying to challenge the old imperialistic economic order in the world. And the powers which are being hurt by those, but the challenge is China, is Japan, USA, European Union, and Australia. So those countries should worry about China. China's rise is not our problem. So why we have nothing to fear about China. We have some small problem, but China is not challenging our way of life. And China don't pose, in a bigger picture, China don't pose any threat to us. So we don't need to escalate the situation by responding overwhelmingly. Basically, now what is happening is an open power struggle between USA and China. And China is trying to challenge the order, and USA is trying to maintain a status quo. It is USA who benefit from the current order. We are not benefit from them. We have to take permission for everything. We want to make a nuclear bomb, we have to take permission. If we want to make a new environmental law, we have to take permission. If we want to do some mining in the Himalayas, we have to take permission. Now the current order is a very hegemonic. So it's not necessarily bad for India. But China challenge because the current order is unjust. It's not equal order, So we have to be very careful. The current order does not work for us. We have 70 years of independence. We're still stuck in small poverty. Why? The current free order is not working for us. China, because communist country, was managed to challenge this order, and they managed to enrich their country. But we as democracy failed. Current order in the world economic system is not working for us. So until unless China attacked us with big military force and tried to grab a huge part of our country, we as far as this power struggle between USA and China is going on, we should keep set aside. Actually, this is what the big powers want. They want us to fight for them with China. So, what is the plan? Let's provoke China, let's provoke India to go to fight, and then Western powers, so-called America and European Union, they will sell weapons to us at heavy prices. You understand? Once China is destroyed and post-war order appears, then they will come in and try to claim is our victory. Then they will try to impose their old ideas again, Western hegemonic imperialism. So why we should mess into the system? China's rise is not a serious threat to us. Maybe we have some border problem, we have some bilateral issues. That is natural between two countries. We are 4,000, 5,000 years civilization. Chinese are old civilization, and this kind of boundary disputes are very natural. But we should not take it as a threat to peace. We can slowly solve it. We must not allow ourselves to be used by Western powers. China is not our problem. China is their problem. China is challenging them. China is not a threat to us, our way of life. China is not saying that why you democracy, why you believe in God. We are democracy, we have a spiritual system. China is a communist system. And we are rule of law. China is not saying that. China is challenging environment, environment policies, military policies, economic order. So many things are currently ordered. How long this system, 200 years old system, has to be replaced It's not working for the 70% population of the world. Most of the people, apart from China, apart from this East Asian country, how many countries have comrades? No. We're stuck. 3-4 countries in East Asia, South Korea, Japan, Singapore become rich. No? But most of the countries are still stuck in poverty. It means the system itself is not working. And this system has to go through. Economic order is based on extreme inequality. You have to take permission for everything from this Western power. They decide what is wrong, what is right. So, rise of China is good for us. They are going to challenge this order. But what always worries me that they can provoke us to go to war with China. You understand? And then they will use us. We are a huge population. We can become a war fodder for the West easily. And then after the war, these countries will come again. They try to impose their old ideas. Our interest is that we should not unnecessarily worry about China. Now we have to honestly ask ourselves, is this order work for us? No, it's not working for us.
Okay, so that's a very interesting and a very huge statement that you have given, Professor Singh. You're saying
Yes.
that the rise of China is not a threat to the Indian sovereignty, neither it is a threat to the Indian democratic and the political system, but it is a threat to the Western neoliberal economic system, which they have implemented and which is not working for the others. So do you, the very related question, quickly I would like to have an answer over it. Do you think that the Chinese-led economic system could fix this inequality or could bring this neoliberal unrestrained free trade into such a line where the inequality is reduced?
No, not necessarily. But China can do is destroy the current order. What China can do is destroy the current order. China, I'm not saying China has the ability to create a new order. They are two different things: destruction and correction. So China has the resources. China has the power to destroy the current unjust order. But I'm not sure whether it has the ability to construct a new order. Whether it can create a consensus.
Fresh idea. That's a very fresh idea, and I think there should be scholars who should think in this direction. And that's really interesting insight from you. So, Dr. Singh, let us move to the next question of our show. Do you consider this current standoff, the current intrusion that happened from the Chinese side, do you take it as a political, diplomatic, and intelligence failure altogether?
Yes. I see it as serious failure from the intelligence, Chinese have intruded into our area, deep into our area, and they have come in numbers. So this is definitely a failure, intelligence failure. As General Pang said in his article yesterday, what our military intelligence was doing. How come such a huge number can come and we don't know? And they have 100 tents,
10,000 people.
Yeah. I mean, they have established a complete tents, So they have come in huge number, like more than 10 to 20,000 people are there. I don't know, I cannot say for sure how many people are there, but they are in thousands,
So it can't be said that India has learned something from the 1999 Kargil war, where we came to know from some shepherds that some of the Pakistani intruders have entered into our territory.
Yes. It means our military has lacked some serious
intelligence failure.
We should be worried. It shows that Chinese can come into our territory and we don't know. So it's a matter of serious concern. It shows that our military lacks some equipment, some resources which they need to keep a constant monitoring on the Chinese side,
And that too at the time when they have already come inside the Nathula Pass near the signal.
Yeah. A few days ago, we have a. And then it means we need more equipment, cameras, satellites, drones, because this is a new technology. We can send drone every day to these areas and have a look, It means our military don't even have a basic infrastructure. So we should not always take it for granted what is thrown to us. We should challenge some of the claims made by our government that our military is better ready,
What do you have to say about the Indian policy on China? Do you think that we have any such policy at the least?
I agree. It's a very good question. I agree that we have a China's policy, and I more or less I agree with the policy. But sometimes our policy has created more suspicion than solving the problem. Now, Chinese don't trust us. They say that one day you're talking about Wuhan spirit, second day you're talking about Quad, So when we create this is a very sophisticated strategy, To implement this kind of strategy, to implement this kind of a policy, you have to be very, very sophisticated knowledge. Now, what is happening that our actions and reactions are making Chinese angry. So if we just don't have this kind of policy, they sit tight, Chinese may not mind. But now we are trying to make Chinese happy with the Wuhan spirit. Then we, second day, we make Chinese angry by our military exercise with USA, So this kind of policy maybe work for us, but it's not working for Chinese. Chinese fail to understand what is happening. So we may get hurt, by this policy. So this strategy that one day we say Chinese bye-bye, second day you go to USA, to Australian, to Japanese, and say China is a threat. To some extent, from our perspective, it can work. But how the Chinese will take it, how the Chinese will interpret it, and how Chinese will react it, you simply cannot ignore, no? I meet Chinese people all the day. The Chinese call, they say, okay, sometimes you invite our president to Mahabalipuram, and then second day you declare we're going to have military exercise with USA, with 30 country, 40 country, in the Indian Ocean, and China is the target. And it has become very difficult to stomach it for Chinese, So our policy, current policy of hot and cold against China is very complete. It's better to stop both for the time being and just stay neutral bilateral relationship. It's much better because our policy is making sufficient. Both even Americans are not happy about us. You see, they think we are with China. They think we are closer to China, and Chinese think we are closer to USA, and we are being sandwiched by both powers. So this is. I don't think we are ready to follow this. This is a very sophisticated policy, and I don't think our policy is working.
Processing, that was also a very interesting point from your side. So again, a very quick question regarding that. Do you think that we are just playing in the hands of Chinese and our policies are not actually making them to react? It's only us who are reacting against any actions of China, and we cannot independently make them react to any of our actions or our surprises.
I more or less agree with you, what you said. Our policy, China policy, basically reactionary to China and to some extent to USA, And so far we have failed to have an independent policy towards China, The reason is that we are not creative enough what China wants, We have failed to see China in a bigger part, what is China doing in Korea, in Japan, in South China Sea, in Taiwan, and then make a policy. So I have always said that China's bigger problem, China's bigger question, we should have a country region-wide policy, then Chinese will react to our policy. So far, our China policy is based on China's policy options, and then we react to it. So we have failed to bring in any new element. Wuhan spirit, again, it was our idea to tackle China, And Chinese have responded only half-heartedly, And they don't trust us that we mean business. Our policy have failed to be proactive and bring new ideas into the system, The problem is that we don't have any real China experts in the Indian policy establishment, And diplomats are there, they know what China, but they are usually diplomats. They are not allowed, they are not trained to have a creative policy options. They always follow orders. And our political leadership is not understanding the problem.
Exactly. So I also feel that India has somehow failed in the South China Sea region, where we don't see any kind of sort of offensive steps from the side of India. Is it true?
Yes, sometimes we send out ships, but that China just laugh it off. One or two ships cannot make any difference. We don't have ability to sustain our intervention in South China Sea. If we really want to be active player in South China Sea, we have to have our resources in the South China Sea. Like we have to good relations with Japan, with Korea, so that we can get our supplies, our material. Until our local countries like Vietnam, Japan, Taiwan support us, we cannot operate strategically. We can go there as a tourist, we can send our ships there, but we have to come back because we need our supplies. So until China's, India's Sonachi strategy is concerned, it should be part of bigger strategy. You know, sometimes we send our ships to South China Sea and try to show our presence there. But Chinese know that India does not have any military strategy to influence the outcome of the power struggle. You know, so they don't take our ships seriously. They make some diplomatic statement. They make some political announcements condemning or protesting India's ships in the South China Sea. But militarily, they know that India don't have ability to influence any power struggle in South China Sea. Why? Because we are just standalone. We don't have any systematic military strategy with the regional countries. Without the support of regional countries, we cannot sustain our South China policy. You know, Vietnam is important, but Vietnam is also a very important player with China. Chinese relationship is going very well. You know.
Absolutely.
So
something of the sort of diplomatic and strategic policies altogether is lacking in the Indian policies. For example, China sensed it long back that they need Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean, and they had Hambantota port over there. Later on, we built an airport. That's another thing. But we are not doing something of that sort in the South China Sea, which we could do actually.
Yes, that is the whole point. We just have a on-and-off policy, you know. But China has compressive strategy, long-term strategy. That's the difference. As I wrote in my article in Qaeda journal, that while China has compressive strategy, we have an on-off policy. Sometimes we do this, sometimes we do that. There's no long-term strategy.
Absolutely, our strategies are totally reactionary. So
there is actually no compressive plan.
Yes, Dr. Singh, we are running short of time. I would like to have quickly your suggestions regarding regarding how we need to deal with China at present and also in the long term, if you could really put it up.
What I think is China is not our problem, first number one. We should always keep in mind. China is not our problem. It's a bigger problem for the world, for the major powers. So we should always keep our reactions low, and we should not rush to our guns. Always keep the bigger picture. If we want to have a kind of a balance of power with China, we cannot do it alone. No matter how much economically stronger we are, we cannot do it alone. So we should develop closer relationship with East Asia, because East Asia is going to play a very important role in the coming power struggle. Now we have a relationship with Japan to some, but it's very, very skin deep. So we should work with Vietnam, with Japan, with Korea, with Taiwan. Systematic, comprehensive, as a part of a comprehensive strategy, not just on and off. Then we can keep kind of balance of power. We cannot, as you know, China's economic relationship with the South Asian country is very strong. So my suggestion is that we should focus more on our relationship with East Asia. So far, India's low-cost policy has remained symbolic. It has focused only on economic factor. Military component has been completely ignored. Sometimes we have kind of, small agreements with the regional countries, but they are just basic agreements.
Exactly. So processing, you are basically hinting towards having engaging regional powers for the benefit of India, which requires, I believe, political will, economical resources, as well as strategic planning. And it will take a long time for India to accumulate all those resources together and move into having such a policies which could benefit India. Thank you very much, Professor Singh, for becoming a part of the show. I hope we can talk to you later as well, because this standoff is not going to end very soon, as far as I guess. So I am hoping that you will give me an opportunity to come to my show after this as well. Thank you.
Yes, right now. Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.